I'm going to wake up Hajarnya.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Let's just, two people are waiting. Let me say admit all. Okay, so that we can. Sali. Muhammad Noor Al-Amudi. Okay, we just. Sheikh Muhammad Noor, are you connecting? Let's just wait for the others because some had joined, but I see they off now again. Maybe there was a break in their connection. Okay, Huda, you are with us? Sheikh Muhammad Noor, if you can join with your microphone also, because I see only your camera while you're connecting still. Laiba, you're the only one who is joined fully, so we'll just wait for the others. Is that okay?
Ji, no problem, Ollie.
Okay then. Because it's some people, let's just see.
Muallim, I wanted to ask you something.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Muallim, the online, will we have an online exam, or we have to come in and write?
The PSN is going to be online, unless, we will not be able to meet at the university. So
Ji,
I'll be thinking around it. It will, in all likely, be online, unless I organize for people all to come here to where I stay, and then just come and do the exam. But online, you see, we can do it online, which is no problem, which means we give you 24 hours in which to do it. I will still find out from the department. So I leave it online. But so the test will be available, say, for 2 days. However, when you start, you see, then you got to finish it within 3 hours, you see. So I will,
Ji,
but the problem is I don't have the facility because you people are not registered. So I can't use for you the UJ facilities. It won't let you in. So I have to figure out
Ji.
other ways. Because what we do with students, the undergraduates, and so they do tests. So we put the test on what is a platform called Blackboard. So it's there for
Oh,
24
okay.
hours, but once you start, you got to finish it in a specific time. So you can't start and like go back,
And it,
Yes,
Ji.
but I'll see. I'll still get to that. I will find out how we can do that best. Sure.
Oh, okay. Jazakallah so
We
much.
just see if the others are now trying to get in. Okay, Muhammad Amin. One person is Muhammad Amin is joining us. Maulana Muhammad Amin. Three. Sheikh Muhammad Noor. Oh, I think he's having connection problems. It happens. I understand that. Let's just wait a little bit. So we got three. And Muhammad Amin. Maulana Muhammad Aman. Muhammad Aman. Are you in? I see only your camera is on. Can you speak via your microphone? We've got 4 participants. We'll have to wait a little bit because it's a lesson. I don't want to just go ahead and then the others, because this is the preparation. Let's just wait, if you don't mind, Laiba, and Maulana Muhammad. See, Sheikh Muhammad, no, let me let me see chat. Maybe he's not having connection difficulties. Alaikum salam. Just waiting for Nazneen. Huda was with us, but then she so Okay, great, great. All right. So Maulana Muhammad Aman, you've joined with your microphone, right? So you and Laiba are fully joined. Let me just try and get to Muhammad Noor. Maybe send him a message. Um, ah, okay. Let me see. Okay. I'm not sure the other. So we're waiting on Nazneen as well as Huda. Huda joined us a little bit, but she's now no longer here. So I don't know.
I'm
do,
Shade.
sorry?
I am, yeah.
Oh,
Buddha.
okay, you are. It's just that I don't see your name here. Okay, so that's great news. Thanks. You know, I don't see your name in
My
the
son. Sorry, I think I signed in with my son's Zoom thing.
Muhammad Aman. Is that your son?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I got confused because there's another person, Maula Muhammad Amin, and I was thinking now, why did his name change from Amin to Aman? Anyway, okay, okay, I understand that. Okay, that's good. So it means we don't have Maulana Muhammad Abdullah. Okay, so that's fine. But we don't have Nazneen and we don't have Maulana Ismail is unable to join us, unfortunately. I don't know, I don't know. Let me just give Sheikh Muhammad Noor and ask him if he can rejoin, because I don't want to remove him because then it's difficult for him to get back in. Just 1 second, people. Sorry about this. I want to start with so the class is starting. Okay, Nazneen, send the message. Let me just phone, then we'll start. If you don't mind. I don't want to leave anyone behind, people, because it's an important class today. At least in terms, it's important because of preparation for the exam. Let me just go. Just do this. Yeah, let me just do this. All the things. Sheikh Noor, okay. Okay, but now we have. Okay, now we 3 again only. Okay, Muhammad. Okay, Uda is back with us. Okay, now this is the, you see, these are the challenges with online, because sometimes you don't know, the network is just weak. These are the challenges that we have with the undergraduates, for example, and it's often difficult. We'll start in a minute, people, in the next minute, inshallah. Let me just give Sheikh Noor a call via the, I tried to call him on WhatsApp, but it's also not answering. Maybe this is, Sheikh Noor, she can't. Walaikum Sheikhna, I think you're having connecting problems. I see your camera is on. Do you maybe want to switch? You know what I suggest? Can you leave the chat and then come back in? Okay, but but try and join with your microphone, please, and then you switch off your video, please, Sheikhna. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I think we'll have to start because Sheikh Muhammad Noor is just gonna go out and then join us, and then we can start with today's class. Nazneen said she'll join us perhaps a bit later. Okay. All right. Sheikh Noor, are you, let me do this. All right. Okay. So, Muhammad. So let me start and see. We'll have to, we'll have to repeat some things when people do join us. Okay. Sheikh Noor, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, he's just now gone out and takes time, and he will. So people, sorry about that. Like I said, this is now. I don't want anyone to miss out as far. So let's just wait for Sheikh Muhammad Noor to rejoin. It's already. Been here since. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. Anyway, maybe while we're waiting for the two, let me ask the two of you, did you go through the reading I sent you? Huda and how did you find it?
Yes. It was quite interesting, Dr. Shahid.
Okay.
You have to read and read.
Okay.
So, but it's
is it how different is it to the studies you did in the Darul Ulum?
For me, it's very different. It's there's some things in here that we didn't learn, like the Sunnah being practices of the pre-Arabs, like what certain people believe in.
Right.
It's
okay. Yes, go ahead, Salam. I'm just waiting. Then we can maybe just have this informal before I start. Go ahead. Laiba, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say it's very interesting because, like as Mu'allima Huda said, that things that we didn't do in madrasa, and it's quite in depth, so it's very nice. And you have to keep on reading so it can just be in your brains, because if you read it once, it doesn't really stick in your head. You have to read it a couple of times.
Right.
Gee.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Nazneen. I see you've joined us.
Walaikum salam, Dr. Shahid and everyone.
Okay. Yes, it is different. It's not but you'd notice the content if you're going to read further. These are things you've come across. It's really the approach. Let's call it the approach to how the author Fazlur Rahman, his outlay of his layout of these things. So we're going to read and we're going to see how he brings in the Orientalist, Western scholars, what they said, to what extent he's in conformity with them, and to what extent he disagrees with them. Okay, so those are perhaps the new things. But you'll see that if you revise your notes, many of these things are not as new. They are there, at least the content. So sometimes it's like assuming you have, let's call it raw materials. It's really how you process those raw materials. They're the difference often lies. So it's not things that are not that often we don't have at least some, even if it's a vague familiarity with. Okay, people, look, I think we should start. If anybody is joining, then I'll just let them into the room. I think Sheikh Muhammad Noor is having some problems, but let's go ahead nevertheless. Okay, so let me, I said I wanted each and you of you to do a 2-month presentation. We'll still do that, but towards the end. Let's go to the book. I'm going to take you, you would have seen that I sent you a copy with some yellow highlights, because those are really the things that you should focus on. But let's go to page 1 and I'll tell you, and that are important, at least for now. This work you can always read. I'd like you one day to read the whole book. Okay, now let me just say to you, and this should be a golden rule in your life. Any book that you read, right, it's got value, but no work is above criticism. Okay, it's above a critique. That you can point out to an author that, you know, there's an inconsistency here, there's new information that came to light. Fazlur Rahman wrote this book in 1964. I did my master's thesis, you know, on this book, a critique, like, but it's an important book because it introduces us to the field. And that is why you have to start looking already. So I'm beginning formally, right? Are you all with me, the three of you? Are you following?
Yeah, I'm following.
Okay.
Gee.
So that's why he calls the book. Always look at the title of a book, people. The Islamic Methodology in History, right? So there are two important words in the title there. Methodology. What does this word methodology means? And again, these things you are familiar with. For those of you who have been, you may not be as familiar sometimes with the word, but the idea you know. In the Darul Ulum, there's a certain method in which your studies were conducted. In other words, the way in which you investigate. Let me give you an example, things that you are familiar with. The isnad. Now, you all know the isnad, right? In hadith, right? For example, when we say a hadith is sahih, what does it mean to say a hadith is sahih? Of course, in English, you're going to say authentic, but that doesn't tell us anything. What is authentic? So if I ask you what is a sahih hadith, and you tell me it's authentic, then I ask you now, what is authentic hadith? Then it's also not helpful. So you know that a sahih hadith is a hadith which is muttasil as-sanad, right? Which has got an unbroken chain. And it is ruwi an adl, that is narrated from an adl. What is this adl means? It's a person certain, and you know the requirements is that the person had to be a righteous person, didn't do the kaba'ir sins, did not insist on the sagha'ir, you know, on the minor sins. Okay, so that tamud dabt, that person had a good memory, right? Min ghayr illa wala shudud. Now this is a methodology. Do you see? It's a way in which you investigate knowledge, in which we produce knowledge. That's a simple definition of methodology. So Fadlur Rahman is saying the Islamic methodology, this legacy, in other words, how do we investigate this and, you know, work to understand how knowledge was produced in history? And that's another important word, in throughout Muslim history, right? So already there, it's important for you to note. So another methodology is, for example, Al-Imam al-Bukhari. We read the Sahih al-Bukhari, right? But if you look at the way in which al-Bukhari arranged his ahadith, that's a methodology. He didn't just take hadith and then put, sometimes, you know, Al-Imam al-Bukhari repeats a hadith under two different abawab, and you know, you go under two different kitab. You know, al-Bukhari is kitab, and under kitab you have bab, for example. Now this is a methodology, you see, because through that, in the way al-Bukhari arranged the hadith in his book, it can give you an idea of how al-Bukhari was thinking. Now you see, at times in the madrasa, we don't look at those things, but it is important for us to look, because then we can actually say al-Bukhari was not just a collector of raw materials. No, he was a thinking person in the way in which now all those things are known as methodology. Okay, so methodology, simplistically put, is the way in which we investigate the production of knowledge. Are you with me? Let me see if others have joined, and then I see if Huda is okay. Three. Muhammad, okay, Huda's right. All right. Right, people. So let's go to page 1. All right. The first word there that we come across is the word Sunnah. Now, Sunnah is, of course, a behavioral concept. Okay, you know that, right? Sunnah is a behavioral concept. Let's go to page 2. Huda, are you with us? Muallima Huda, are you with us? Still joining. Since the network is really weak, I don't want to leave anyone there. Right? Okay, Huda, are you with us? Muallima Huda, are you with us? Okay, let's go ahead. Sorry about this. Right. If you can just listen. All right. So we're on page 1 of the work, right? So the first is the word sunnah. Now remember, sunnah is a very important term. Now that's what you should know. Let's go to page 2. There on page 2 is the yellow. It says that sunnah means exemplary conduct. Now we are aware of exemplary conduct that you know of, right? Is that, and when you speak the exemplary conduct of who? It is the exemplary conduct of the Prophet Muhammad, right? It's the exemplary conduct of the Prophet. Okay, but you'll see immediately there under we have a term called, let's go down lexically. What does the word sunnah lexically mean? In language, in other words. Right? He cites the word sawara, the original meaning of the verb sanna. Now, sunnah comes from the word sanna. This is important because I may ask you this in the exam. What is the original? So sunnah is what we call a verbal noun, right? But it comes from which verb? It comes from the word sanna, right? And sanna itself is the word sawwara. Now in the Quran, you often have the word huwalladhi yusawwirukum fil arham. Allah is the one who fashions you in the wombs, right? As people. So sawwara, can you see which sawwara? To fashion a thing or produce. This is a very important. These people, the lexical meaning of words are very important. You have learned this in the ulama, am I correct? Whenever you give a definition of the word salah, you always learn lughatan and shar'an, am I correct?
Yeah.
So for example, if somebody, again, these are important. If somebody asks you, yani arif as-salah, define the word salah. Right? Now salah, in language, it simply means dua. That's what it means. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not come to teach the Arabs Arabic. They knew Arab. You know, he was the best speaker of Arabic here. But Arabic exists before the Prophet, right? They knew these terms, the word Allah, Salah, Hajj, Zakah. These words were known. The Quran, when the Prophet came, he did not for the first time come in and let them know these terms. These terms existed. So for example, if you say, what is the lexical, the linguistic meaning of what Hajj? It means to aim. Hajj al-qasd, to aim at something. So the Arabs knew this term before Islam. The word sawm, literally it means to refrain, imsak, to refrain from. Right? So this is very important that we understand to start with what is the lexical meaning of the word sunnah. It comes from the verb sanna, and sanna itself means to fashion something. So you can see that when we speak about the sunnah, what came to be understood as the sunnah of the Prophet was fashioned. Okay. And that is a very overall, abstract, general statement. Okay, sunnah, right. Then we're going to come to, but what is the terminological meaning of that same term? Now, I was just saying to you, salah or hajj. Hajj, for example, we say it means to aim at something. It means to aim at something. But when we say in fiqh, in sharia, al-hajj or salah, then we say, for example, أفعال مخصوصة وأقوال مخصوصة مفتتحة بتحريم ومختتمة بالتسليم. Now we say salah are specific actions and specific wordings. Of course, you do specific. We know we do specific actions in salah and specific wording. You can't say anything just in salah. That are commenced with the tahrima when you do takbiratul ihram, or the tahrima as they call it in the Hanafi school. وَمُخْتَتِمَةٌ بِالتَّسْلِيم, and then it is ended off when you make salam. That is now the very specific definition of salah, because that understanding of salah the Arabs did not have. That is what the Prophet introduced. Are you with me, people? right?
Ji.
Please, that is to the Prophet. No, Sunnah, the word Sunnah was known to the Arabs. The Arabs, their leaders had a Sunnah before the Prophet. But, so the word Sunnah and Sunnah was known to the Arabs, not a new word. The Prophet Islam did not come and introduce the word Sunnah. But what then became was that we then understood behavioral concept, exemplary conduct of who? Of that of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But even that early age, we'll see that the Muslims of the first three generations did not have the understanding that it came later to be. Okay, let's go to page 3. So please, what is important there for the same exam is that you must know the linguistic meaning of the word sunnah, where it comes from. I hope that I'm recording this, but you can also write it down, just notes. So the word comes from the word sunnah, which means to fashion, from the word sawara. Let's go to page 3. Okay, now let's go to page 4, and then we can go page 4 and page 5. On page 4, I want to just briefly take you to the Orientalist view. The Orientalist. You can write down that you can see the second paragraph there on page 4. That's why I want to take you. The second paragraph on page 4 there. Fazlur Rahman, who's the author of this work, refers to some of Western scholars. They are called Orientalists. One day we'll do a more critical study of Orientalism, because Orientalist studies was a very damaging study too. But that's not our concern for now. For now, we're going to see that what these Western scholars, can you see some names there? Ignaz Goldziher. Are you with me?
Yes.
Snook Hargronje. Then there is a person called Lamens. Now, please know these names are important. I will ask some of them in the exam, the RPL exam. Even if not all, but know at least 2 of them. What were they saying? Now, Fazlur Rahman is now telling what do they think of Sunnah. Now, you'll see that here there's a whole difference. Okay. For example, Goldziher says that after he maintained that immediately after the advent of the Prophet, his practice and conduct had come to constitute the Sunnah for the young Muslim community. So Goldziher is saying to us, he died in 1921. He says that no, the Prophet's practice did come to constitute something ideal for the Muslims. There's another guy there called Snook Hargronje. He said that Muslims added to the Sunnah of the Prophet. So in other words, he's saying that no, it's not just what the Prophet, but also what Muslims added to the Sunnah until, right? Then we have Lamens, right at the bottom. See what Lamens says, right? But on the top of page 5 there, you have a guy called Margoliouth. Are you on top of here? Okay. Margoliouth came to say that the Sunnah is entirely the work of the pre-Islamic Arabs and post-Islamic Arabs. In other words, he's saying that the Prophet did not do anything specific. All that we know is the Sunnah today. Now I'm going to come to Hadith, people. Just hold on a bit with Hadith, right? We'll come to Hadith. I just want to do this first. Is that everything that they did, that is what what we know as Sunnah today, that is the deeds and the sayings of the Arabs prior to Islam and after Islam. Are you with me? But on page 5 there, the most important name, which really becomes then, is that name called Yosef Schacht. Can you see there on page 5? Joseph Schacht. Are you with me? Right. So Joseph Schacht said on page 5, Sunnah of the Prophet is a relatively late concept. And that's all I want you to know. We're not going to go into much detail. Know that. So in other words, if I ask you a question in exam, summarize in about 3 or 4 sentences what Yosef Schacht and say, for example, Margoliouth said, then you must know that. Okay. So that paragraph, and because we need to know what these Western scholars said, not because we need to know because, it's, but the Western discourse has become the dominant one that we want to challenge critically. Okay. That we want to challenge critically. Okay. So you must know thus what Schacht said. Okay. So let's go on. So now, but what is important, what is Fadlur Rahman saying? Can you see there that I have also highlighted in yellow? He says there, if you go to the middle of the page, it says the reason why these scholars have rejected the concept of the prophetic Sunnah. So these scholars, all of them rejected that the Prophet had a Sunnah in one line. These Western scholars, they rejected. What is the reason? Can you see there the Roman 1, symbol 1? that a part of the content of the Sunnah is a direct continuation of the pre-Islamic customs and mores of the Arabs. That's number one, they said. And number two, that the greatest part of the content of the Sunnah was a result of the free thinking of the early leges. That paragraph is important, people. Are you all with me? I want to take 2 seconds just to hear from all of you. Are you with me?
Ji Muallim.
Muallima Huda, you with us? And Muallima Nazneen, you all with us? Okay.
Yeah, I'm following.
Muallima Huda, I see you got, should I admit you in under Huda as well? Because I
Yes,
see
please, and then I'll leave this.
Okay, let me do that. I just, because I'm going out, you know, from my, I don't know how to, I must learn how to share the screen and then I write. Okay. Now let's go on. So that, please people, that paragraph there, that in the middle, is that the important thing is for you to know is that what these Western scholars said. So they, in essence, they reject what we call the Sunnah, what we know and hold on to as the Sunnah of the Prophet. You with me? Now let's come to page 6. And page 6 is very, very important. And please write this down. Fazlur Rahman speaks about, and let's speak about Sunnah between concept, write this word, concept and content. Because now we're going to get into a bit more familiar territory. So Sunnah between concept and content. The two important words here, concept on the one hand and concept on the other hand. Okay, you with me, right? You with me. So concept and content. So Fadlur Rahman is saying, and Fadlur Rahman is the author, on the one hand, he agrees with the Orientalists, but he also disagrees with them. Now, he agrees with them. Firstly, let me say where he disagrees. He says there is definitely what we can call the concept. There's an ideal sunnah, that the Prophet left a sunnah. This is the concept of the Prophet. We'll come back to this in a bit more detail. Are you following with me? That the Prophet, there is definitely, and that which we call behavioral concept, the uswa, like the Quran says, uswatun hasana, right? So there is definitely a concept that the Prophet left the sunnah as a concept. That is the Prophet's ideal behavior, his behavioral pattern, different words. In other words, that the Prophet was an exemplar that people looked up to. You know, you hear the ahadith of the Sahaba, for example, taking the water that fell from his hands. So in other words, he presented a model for them. You know, somebody you look up to. Some of them taking the blood of the Prophet, and putting it on their tongues or so. That means what? The Prophet was this exemplar. So certainly the Prophet was looked upon as someone ideal, as an exemplary conduct which people sought to imitate. So that, Fazlur Rahman, there is this as the concept, that word concept. Because the Orientalists don't even see that in the Prophet. Right. So we've got that. But then there is the notion of content. Here Fazlur Rahman agrees by and large with the Orientalists. They say that, and when we speak about concept, let me bring in here the word hadith. In other words, what we have as content, what we call hadith, this, the largest part of what we today call the hadith, here they say that no, this was not only what the Prophet said and did, but what the generations, the 2 generations after the Prophet said and did. Well, some, of course, you know by now that some of his Orientalists said is that it even from pre-Islamic Arabia. But they said that lots of these, and we're going to come back to it, the content is the thinking of the early Muslims. And this comes to hadith. So in other words, hadith and sunnah from this are not synonymous like we do today. Today, when you say hadith and sunnah, we think of the same things. People, this discussion is going to end now in the next few seconds. So then you just log in with the same link I sent you yesterday. Okay, so when it stops, then we just log in, just to let you know, because we're going to stop in the next few seconds. Let me stop on that and you think about that. We will resume immediately with the notion of content. We've now discussed what is concept, and now we're going to come to content. Okay. So let's just, right when it stops, we'll link in again. Until it stops by itself. So let me say, so, okay, let's leave it at here and then we start again. It gives you a few seconds to think about what I said.
Mu'allim,
Yes.